Mishpatim asher tosim lifneim. So I had a kasha as follows. Rashi says, Rashi has a kasha, it's a mechilta, that by all the other mitzvahs is Vaydaber Hashem or Moshe Leimer. There's always a different way of being given over. Over here it says asher tosim lifneim. So mechilta says asher tosim lifneim is there's a havamina to think that Ashana lehem perek zeh bezer gimel pomim. I should tell it over to them once or twice, but I don't have to be Maven lehem tamei hadover. I don't have to give them a deep understanding of the ideas. So the pasuk says, "Asher tosim lifneim," that these mishpatim have to be given over with a certain clarkite that they understand all of the. They all understand. They have to understand the deep meaning behind the mishpatim. So my kasha was, why dafka in this parsha was it necessary that it should be an inyan of tosim lifneim, that it should be given over with this clarkite? Then I had a different shaila that I looked up the Gemara in Eruvin. The Gemara in Eruvin says that Ve'ela Mishpatim Asher Tosim Lifneim teaches us that in all Hilchas HaTorah, not just by the Parasha of Eved Ivri and further, is a halacha of Asher Tosim Lifneim. That every halacha you give over has to be given over not just 2-3 times, but it has to be given over that you're Mevinam Tamei Hadova. Right? Rashi says, Kishulchan Aruch. Lavinam tami hadavar upirushay. Shulchan Aruch muchan lechol lifnei adam. Shulchan Aruch is the muscle of a very clear understanding. The way you understand sushi, I guess. Understand exactly. But the Gemara in Eruvin says it's a halacha everywhere in the Torah. So why was it given over dafka over here by this parsha, the inyan of Asher Tosim Lifneim, given over with a tremendous havana? Furthermore, I was thinking. It says Ve'ela Mishpatim. Eved Ivri is the furthest thing from a mishpat. You buy an Eved Ivri, so the mishpat, the svara would have told you that an Eved Ivri is yours. You can do with him whatever you want. And we find all the halachas are the antithesis of ownership. That if you have one pillow, you have to give it to him. If you're a 60-year-old fellow and can't bend down 6 in the morning to tie your shoes, you can't ask your Eved Ivri to tie the shoes for you. There's nothing that you can make him do that you can do yourself. So that's a mishpat? That makes sense? It doesn't make sense. You buy someone, you pay money for your maid, and you can't ever do all the things you need her to do. Furthermore, I saw that the hakollel asks, it says, Kisikne Eved Ivri. So Rashi is stuck a little bit. It's a mechilta that what does it mean Eved Ivri? Is it an Eved of an Ivri? Is an Eved who is an Ivri? Is an Eved Kanani that you bought from a Yid? And it's not clear. Rashi says, is it Eved Kanani Shalochem Yisrael, or is it Avdoi Shal Ivri, or is it Eved Shehu Ivri? So the Mechilta comes to the conclusion that it means you bought a Jewish person, and a Jewish person buys another Jewish person. So the hakollel asks, why does the Torah write it in such a confusing way? It should have said, Kisikne Ivri, if you buy a Jew. And then you'll know exactly what it's talking about. What's the confusion that the pasuk writes in such a confusing way? The hakollel asks a different kasha that kisikne Eved Ivri. It's not true. You're not buying an Eved Ivri. You're buying an Ivri who, once you buy him, he becomes an Eved. He's not an Eved Ivri yet. He's an Eved only after the purchase was consummated. It's a new kasha. On by gold. Only an Eved, but still he's not an Eved yet. You have a shaila if he's an Ivri yet. What? You're asking he's not an Ivri yet. So they were Ivrim. They had Matan Torah. They're not Ivrim anymore. And the new kasha we have over here today is what's the Lashon Ivri over here? It's the only time in the Torah we see Lashon Ivri besides in Re'eh when it talks again when it chazes over the parish of Eved Ivri. In Bahar. So I was thinking as follows. Someone told me that someone says such a teretz, I forgot who. Kisikne Eved Ivri, the Torah is telling you that there's a very big problem over here. When a person starts lording over somebody else, when somebody takes ownership of somebody else, it could become very misleading that the person who you buy loses his dignity. The person who owns him treats him with less dignity because he can lord over him. The Torah is telling you, Kisikna Eved Ivri, you should just know when you're buying him, you're buying an Eved. This Eved is not Eved Ivri. This Eved is Eved Hashem. Eved is Eved Hashem. Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim. Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim. Avodai v'lei avodim la'avodim. That the Torah is telling you, Kisikna Eved. You have to be aware that you're buying an Eved. And when you're dealing with a Yid's neshama, when you're dealing with a Yid, there has to be a tremendous care given in how you treat him. Especially in a matzav where it could be misled. A person can be misled to think that you have something over him. So the Torah is telling you, Kisikna Eved. And that's the pshat, it's taka a mishpat. It's a mishpat. It's mistaber. That when a person's dealing with an Eved Hashem, when a Nishmas Yisrael, you have to remember how to treat him. It's mistaber, exactly the treatment that the Torah tells you how to treat the Eved. That is all logical. It's illogical to think that you could take an Eved Hashem and subjugate him and degrade him and condescend him and make him lower than you. He's an Eved Hashem. And that's the pshat maybe why the Gemara in Eruvin says, Ve'ela mishpatim asher tosim lifneim. Of course, in all Hilchas HaTorah, you have to mevina lehem tami adover upirushoy kishulchan aruch hamuchan lifneim. But this halacha, that a person can make a mistake and mistreat a Nishmas Yisrael who's an Eved Hashem, so the Torah druksois, the Torah shtels avek the asher tosim lifneim, that over here you have to be extra care to give it over with a havana, that that person should understand who he's buying and what he's getting involved with. Dafka over here, the Torah says asher tosim lifneim, umikan nilmad l'shar mekoimis, that you have to learn out the halacha. But over here it has to be an asher tosim lifneim, because dealing with a Nishmas Yisrael, you have to boost them up, you have to make them feel good, you have to make them feel as choshev as yourself, and that's why it says Eved Ivri. And the answer to your shaila is